stop scrolling for just a moment, because the coin you are looking at may be sitting in a drawer, an old jar, a collection, or even in your pocket right now. It looks ordinary. It is small. It is silver-colored. And at first glance, most people would probably spend it without thinking twice. But this is exactly why coin collectors always say, never judge an old coin by its face value alone. Today we are taking a close look at the 1983 D Washington quarter, a coin that many people have seen before, a coin that has passed through millions of hands, a coin that may look common at first glance. But when it comes to old coins, the year, the mint mark, the condition, the strike, the errors, and the history behind the coin can completely change the story. And before you spend a 1983 D quarter for just 25 cents, you need to understand exactly what you are looking at. Because not every 1983 D quarter is worth a fortune, but some examples can be much more interesting to collectors than an ordinary worn coin. And the biggest mistake many people make is assuming that every coin from the 1980s is automatically worthless just because millions were made. That is not how coin collecting works. In the world of numismatics, the real question is not simply, how old is the coin? The real question is, what is the condition? Is there a rare error? How strong is the strike? How much wear does the coin have? Does it have unusual damage or a genuine mint-made variety? And most importantly, what would collectors actually pay for that specific example? So today we are going to examine the 1983 D Washington quarter from beginning to end. We will talk about its history. We will explain the Denver Mint. We will look at the design. We will discuss the metal composition. We will explain why the condition of this coin matters so much. We will talk about possible errors and varieties. And we will also explain the difference between a coin that is simply old, a coin that is collectible, and a coin that can truly attract serious collector attention. So if you have a 1983 D Washington quarter, do not spend it before you finish watching this video. Because the small letter D on this coin tells us something very important. This coin was made at the Denver Mint, and that one small mint mark can help identify exactly where the coin was produced. Now let's begin. The coin we are looking at. The coin shown in the images is a 1983 D Washington quarter. On the front of the coin, we see the famous portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States. Around the design are the words "Liberty and in God we trust." At the bottom is the date 1983, and just to the right of Washington's neck you can see the small D mint mark. That letter is extremely important for identification. The D represents the Denver Mint. On the reverse side of the coin, we see the traditional eagle design. The words United States of America appear around the top. The phrase E pluribus unum appears above the eagle, and at the bottom, the denomination is clearly shown as $quarter. This design is instantly recognizable to millions of Americans. But this coin is more than just a piece of pocket change. It is a piece of American history from the early 1980s. Think about the world in 1983. The United States was experiencing major changes. Technology was developing rapidly. American culture was changing. People were using different forms of technology than we use today. And every time the United States Mint produced coins, those coins entered the economy and began traveling. A quarter made in Denver could eventually travel across the country. It could be used at a store in another state. It could be placed into a vending machine. It could be saved in a jar. It could be carried by several different generations of people. And after more than 4 decades, some of those coins are still being discovered today. That is one of the fascinating things about coin collecting. You are not just collecting metal, you are collecting history. Why the 1983 D quarter is interesting. Now let's talk about why collectors pay attention to coins like this. The 1983 D Washington quarter is not automatically a rare coin simply because it is from 1983. This is an important point. Many online videos make people believe that every old quarter is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. That is simply not true. The majority of circulated 1983 D quarters are worth close to their normal face value. However, that does not mean every example is worthless. The real value of a coin depends on several factors. The first factor is condition. The second factor is rarity. The third factor is demand. The fourth factor is errors or unusual characteristics. And the fifth factor is professional certification and grading. A coin that has been heavily circulated for decades is usually worth far less than a coin that was preserved in nearly perfect condition. This is why 2 coins with exactly the same year and mint mark can have completely different values. One coin may have scratches. Another may have heavy wear. A third coin may be bright but damaged by cleaning. And another coin may have survived in exceptional condition with strong details and very little contact. To an untrained person, all four coins may look similar. To a collector, they can be completely different. The history of the Washington quarter. To understand this coin, we should first understand the history of the Washington quarter. The Washington quarter was introduced in the United States in 1932. The original purpose was to honor George Washington. The design was created for the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth. Over the decades, the quarter became one of the most commonly used coins in American commerce. Millions of people have used Washington quarters for shopping, parking, vending machines, laundry, and everyday transactions. The design remained extremely recognizable for generations, but the metal composition of the coin changed over time. Earlier quarters were made with a silver composition. However, by the 1960s, the United States Mint moved away from using silver in circulating quarters because the rising value of silver was creating problems. The modern quarter, including the 1983 D quarter, is a clad coin. This means it is not made of solid silver. Instead, it uses layers of metal. That is why many people mistakenly believe that every old-looking quarter must be a silver quarter. But the year is extremely important. A 1983 quarter is not the same as a pre-1965 silver Washington quarter. So if you find a 1983 D quarter, you should not assume that its value comes from silver content. Its collectible value would instead come from factors such as condition, errors, varieties, or collector demand. The importance of the D Mint mark. Now let's focus on the small letter D. The Denver Mint has produced billions of United States coins throughout American history. The Mint mark allows collectors to identify the facility where a coin was produced. For this coin, the D tells us that it was made in Denver. This is important because different mints can produce different numbers of coins in different years. Some mintages are extremely high, others are lower, and certain combinations of date and mint mark can become especially interesting to collectors. But remember something important. A low mintage does not automatically guarantee a high price. The coin still has to be desirable. The condition still matters, and the market still determines what buyers are willing to pay. That is why experienced collectors do not simply look at a year and immediately declare a coin valuable. They examine the entire coin. The condition of this specific coin. Looking at the photos, this 1983 D quarter shows clear signs of circulation. The design is worn. The high points of Washington's portrait have lost detail. The reverse design also shows significant wear. There are marks and surface damage visible on the coin. This tells us that the coin has spent a considerable amount of time in circulation. That is completely normal. Remember, this coin was made in 1983. It has been around for more than 40 years. It may have been used by many different people. It may have traveled through countless transactions. So the wear tells a story. But from a collector's point of view, heavy circulation generally lowers the value compared with an uncirculated coin. This is why condition is so important. Imagine finding two 1983 D quarters. Both have the same date. Both have the same mint mark. Both were made at the same mint. But one was placed into a collection shortly after it was made. The other was used for years. The first coin might still have sharp details. The second might have worn lettering, flattened designs, and numerous marks. Collectors would not treat those coins equally. This is why professional coin grading exists. Professional graders examine the condition of a coin and assign it a grade based on the amount of wear and the overall quality. The better the grade, the more desirable the coin may become. But not every coin should be submitted for grading. Professional grading costs money, so collectors usually consider the potential value of the coin before sending it for certification. What is the value of a 1983 D Washington quarter? Now comes the question everybody wants answered. How much is a 1983 D Washington quarter worth? The honest answer is it depends. For a normal circulated example like the coin shown in the photos, the value is generally close to its regular face value. That means you should not automatically believe that every 1983 D quarter is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. However, high-grade examples can attract more interest. A coin that has been preserved in exceptional condition can be much more desirable than a Heavily worn example. The value can also change if the coin contains a genuine mint error. This is where things become much more interesting. For example, collectors may examine a coin for unusual characteristics involving the strike, lettering, date, rim, plancher, or other minting details. But this is also where caution becomes extremely important. A lot of damage can look like a mint error. A scratch is not automatically an error. A dent is not automatically an error. A damaged rim is not automatically an error. A strange-looking mark is not automatically rare. The key question is, was the unusual feature created at the United States Mint, or did it happen after the coin entered circulation? If the damage happened after the coin left the mint, it is usually considered post-mint damage. That can make the coin interesting to look at, but it does not necessarily make it valuable. Mint errors and why they matter. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process. The United States Mint produces coins through a complex process. Metal is prepared into blanks. The blanks are processed into planchers. The planchers are struck between dies. The dies impress the designs onto the coin. If something goes wrong during this process, the result can sometimes be an error coin. Some errors are obvious. Others are extremely subtle. Collectors may look for things such as a dramatic off-center strike, a broad strike, a clipped plancher, a doubled design caused by a genuine die variety, a die crack, a major die break, a wrong plancher error, or other unusual mint-made characteristics. But once again, the word genuine is extremely important. The internet is full of photographs of coins with unusual damage. Many of these coins are incorrectly described as rare errors. For example, if a coin is struck normally and later gets hit by another object, it can develop strange marks. If a coin is squeezed in a machine, the rim may become distorted. If a coin is scratched, the scratch may look like a doubled line. If a coin is exposed to chemicals, the color may change. None of these things automatically create a valuable mint error. This is why serious collectors study the minting process. They do not just look at the coin and say, "It looks strange, so it must be rare." They ask how the feature could have been created. The date 1983. The date on this coin is 1983. The date is one of the first things collectors check. But the date alone is not enough. You also need to check the mint mark. A 1983 quarter from one mint may have a different production history from a 1983 quarter made at another facility. This is why collectors record coins using the combination of date plus mint mark. For this coin, the important identification is 1983 D Washington quarter. When you search for information about a coin, always use the complete description. Do not simply search for 1983 quarter. Use the year, use the denomination, use the design, and use the mint mark. This helps you avoid confusing your coin with a different version. The reverse design. The reverse of the coin features the American eagle. This design is one of the most recognizable images in United States coinage. The eagle represents strength and national identity. That can make the coin interesting to look at, but it does not necessarily make it valuable. Mint errors and why they matter. A genuine mint error is created during the manufacturing process. The United States Mint produces coins through a complex process. Metal is prepared into blanks. The blanks are processed into planchers. The planchers are struck between dies. The dies impress the designs onto the coin. If something goes wrong during this process, the result can sometimes be an error coin. Some errors are obvious. Others are extremely subtle. Collectors may look for things such as a dramatic off-center strike, a broad strike, a clipped plancher, a doubled design caused by a genuine die variety, a die crack, a major die break, a wrong plancher error, or other unusual mint-made characteristics. But once again, the word genuine is extremely important. The internet is full of photographs of coins with unusual damage. Many of these coins are incorrectly described as rare errors. For example, if a coin is struck normally and later gets hit by another object, it can develop strange marks. If a coin is squeezed in a machine, the rim may become distorted. If a coin is scratched, the scratch may look like a doubled line. If a coin is exposed to chemicals, the color may change. None of these things automatically create a valuable mint error. This is why serious collectors study the minting process. They do not just look at the coin and say, "It looks strange, so it must be rare." They ask how the feature could have been created. The date 1983. The date on this coin is 1983. The date is one of the first things collectors check. But the date alone is not enough. You also need to check the mint mark. A 1983 quarter from one mint may have a different production history from a 1983 quarter made at another facility. This is why collectors record coins using the combination of date plus mint mark. For this coin, the important identification is 1983 D Washington quarter. When you search for information about a coin, always use the complete description. Do not simply search for 1983 quarter. Use the year, use the denomination, use the design, and use the mint mark. This helps you avoid confusing your coin with a different version. The reverse design. The reverse of the coin features the American eagle. This design is one of the most recognizable images in United States coinage. The eagle represents strength and national identity. The words United States of America surround the design. The motto E pluribus unum appears above the eagle. The denomination $quarter appears below. On a heavily circulated coin, many of these details become worn. The highest parts of the design receive the most contact. The eagle's feathers can lose definition. The lettering can become softer. The surfaces can develop scratches and marks. This is completely normal for a coin that has been in circulation for decades. But on a high-grade example, collectors want to see strong detail. They want to see clean surfaces. They want to see minimal contact marks. They want to see attractive overall eye appeal. This is one reason why high-grade coins can become much more interesting than ordinary circulated examples. Why you should never clean this coin. Now this is extremely important. If you find an old coin, do not clean it with household products. Do not polish it. Do not scrub it. Do not use toothpaste. Do not use harsh chemicals. Do not try to make the coin shine. Many people think a shiny coin must be worth more. But in the collecting world, cleaning can actually reduce the value. Collectors often prefer natural surfaces. A coin that has developed its appearance, naturally over time, can be more desirable than a coin that has been aggressively polished. Cleaning can leave scratches. It can remove the original surface. It can create unnatural brightness. And experienced collectors can often recognize when a coin has been cleaned. So if you believe you have something special, the safest approach is to handle it carefully by the edges and avoid damaging the surface. What should you check on your 1983 D quarter? If you have a 1983 D quarter, begin with the basics. First, confirm the date. Make sure it actually says 1983. Next, look for the D mint mark. Then examine the overall condition. Look at the portrait. Look at the lettering. Look at the date. Look at the rim. Look at the reverse design. Look for unusual features that appear to be part of the original minting process. But do not confuse ordinary damage with a rare error. A genuine error usually has characteristics that make sense within the minting process. For example, if the entire design is dramatically shifted toward the edge, that may be more interesting than a simple scratch. If the coin has a major missing area caused by a plancher problem, that may deserve further research. If the design appears doubled in a way consistent with a known die variety, that may be worth investigating. But small random marks are usually just damage. Why condition is so important. Coin collectors often use a grading scale to describe condition. A heavily circulated coin may show significant wear. A lightly circulated coin may retain more detail. An uncirculated coin has not experienced normal circulation wear. And a high-grade coin may have exceptional preservation. The difference between these categories can be enormous. Imagine a coin that was produced in 1983. One example was placed into a pocket and used for years. Another example was stored in a protective holder immediately after production. Both coins are technically the same date and mint mark, but the second coin may be dramatically more desirable. This is why coin collecting is not simply about age. A coin does not become valuable just because it is old. A coin becomes valuable because of a combination of factors: age, rarity, condition, demand, historical importance, errors, and preservation. The biggest mistake new collectors make. The biggest mistake new collectors make is believing that every unusual-looking coin is automatically worth a fortune. This is not true. A coin can be old and still be common. A coin can be damaged and still be worth only face value. A coin can look shiny and still be worth very little. And a coin can look ordinary, but contain a genuine feature that makes it much more interesting. The key is learning how to separate fact from hype. If somebody tells you that every 1983 D quarter is worth thousands of dollars, be careful. If somebody tells you that one scratch automatically makes your coin rare, be careful. If somebody tells you that a coin is valuable without examining the date, mint mark, condition, and possible error, be careful. Real coin collecting requires research and careful examination. Coin collecting is about the story. One reason I personally find coins like this so interesting is the story behind them. This quarter was made in 1983. At that time, nobody knew exactly where this individual coin would eventually end up. It could have been used by a child. It could have been carried by a worker. It could have been saved in a collection. It could have been lost for years. It could have been buried in the ground. It could have traveled through several states. And now, decades later, it has been photographed and examined. That is the beauty of coin collecting. Every coin has a journey. Some coins are rare because very few were made. Some are rare because very few survived. Some are valuable because they are in incredible condition. Some are valuable because of a major error. And some are valuable simply because they connect us to an important moment in history. Should you keep this coin? So should you keep a 1983 D Washington quarter? The year 1983 may not sound particularly ancient. This coin is not hundreds of years old. It is not an early American coin. It is not made of solid silver. But age is only one factor in collecting. A coin does not have to be extremely old to be collectible. Many modern coins are collected because of their condition, errors, varieties, historical importance, or scarcity in certain grades. The 1980s were a fascinating period in American history. The United States was experiencing major technological and cultural changes. Personal computers were becoming increasingly important. Television was changing. American society was entering a new technological era. And throughout this changing environment, the United States Mint continued producing coins for everyday commerce. Millions of people use quarters every day without thinking about the future. Nobody using a quarter in 1983 could know exactly where that individual coin would be decades later. A coin made in Denver could eventually travel across the country. It could end up in a different state. It could be placed in a collection. It could be lost and found. It could pass through generations. This is one reason dates are so important to collectors. A coin represents a specific moment in time. When you hold a 1983 coin, you are holding something that was manufactured during that particular year. That coin existed before many technologies that we now consider normal. It existed before smartphones, before modern social media, before many of today's everyday digital systems, and yet it is still here. That historical connection gives coins a special appeal. Chapter 4. The Story of George Washington on the Quarter. To understand the Washington Quarter, we need to understand why George Washington appears on it. George Washington was the first president of the United States. He played a central role in the founding of the nation. His image became one of the most recognizable portraits in American history. The Washington quarter was introduced in the early 20th century as a tribute to Washington. The design became one of the most successful and recognizable designs in United States coinage. For generations, Americans have seen Washington on the quarter. Children learn about him in school. Adults use coins bearing his image every day, and collectors study the many different versions of the quarter that have been produced over the decades. The Washington quarter has gone through changes in metal composition, design, minting technology, and production methods, but the central identity of the coin remained familiar. This continuity is one reason collectors enjoy building complete sets. They can collect quarters by year, by mint mark, by design, by condition, or by special varieties and errors. A collector might begin with one ordinary quarter. Then they find another. Then they start looking for different dates. Eventually, they begin examining mint marks. Before long, a simple interest in old change can become a serious hobby. That is how many collectors begin. Not with an expensive ancient coin, not with a rare gold piece, but with something that was found in ordinary circulation. Chapter 5. The Denver Mint and the letter D. The small letter D is one of the most important details on this coin. It tells us where the coin was produced. The D represents the Denver Mint. Mint marks are extremely important in American coin collecting because different production facilities can produce different quantities of coins. Some years have coins from multiple mints. Some mint marks may be more difficult to find in certain conditions. Some combinations of date and mint mark become important to collectors. The mint mark is therefore part of the identity of the coin. When you describe a coin as a 1983 D Washington quarter, you are giving much more information than simply saying 1983 quarter. You are identifying the date and the production facility. This is a basic skill every collector should learn. Whenever you find an old coin, always check the mint mark. Sometimes the difference between two coins is a single letter, and that single letter can completely change how collectors classify the coin. But once again, the mint mark alone does not automatically make a coin rare. A coin can have an interesting mint mark and still be common. The entire combination of date, mint mark, condition, and characteristics must be considered. Chapter 6. How the coin was made. To understand mint errors, you need to understand how a coin is made. The process begins with metal. The metal is prepared and formed into sheets or other materials depending on the coin. From these materials, blanks are produced. A blank is a basic piece of metal before it receives the coin's design. The blank is then processed into a plancher. The plancher is the prepared piece of metal that will eventually be struck by coin dies. The plancher is placed between dies. The dies contain the design. When tremendous pressure is applied, the design is transferred onto the metal. The result is a finished coin. This process happens at enormous speed. Millions of coins can be produced. And whenever a complex mechanical process produces huge quantities of objects, mistakes can occasionally happen. That is where mint errors come from. A die may crack. A plancher may have an unusual problem. A coin may not be positioned correctly. A mechanical failure may occur. A die may become damaged. The result can sometimes be a coin with a genuine mint-made error. Some errors are minor, some are dramatic, some are highly collectible, and some are so unusual that they attract major attention. But the key is understanding how the error happened. Final outro, the last warning. So the next time you find an old quarter, do not immediately spend it. Turn it over, check the date, look for the mint mark, study the condition, look for unusual characteristics, but do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not scratch it. And do not believe every exaggerated price you see online. The 1983 D Washington quarter may look ordinary, but it represents more than just 25 cents. It represents American history. It represents the Denver Mint. It represents the millions of coins that traveled through everyday life. And it reminds us that the world of coin collecting is full of small details. Sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and an important collectible is a single letter, a single year, a small error, a rare variety, or a condition that survived decades of circulation. So check your coins carefully, because the next quarter you receive may not be worth a fortune, but it may still have a story. And sometimes the story is the most valuable thing of all. If you enjoyed this detailed examination of the 1983 D Washington quarter, make sure to subscribe for more coin history, rare coin discoveries, valuable coins, mint errors, and detailed coin collecting guides. And remember, Before you spend an old coin, check it carefully, because you never know what may be hiding in your pocket, your drawer, your old coin jar, or a collection that has been sitting untouched for decades.